The European coalition is the single most powerful and influential faction on this moon. When humanity was abandoned on Europa, for better or for worse, a few of its sparse colonies, the strongest of Europa, signed an accord of trade and cooperation, and with that, the basis of what we know as the European coalition was born. While perhaps not an official or even legal form of government, what do such terms even matter when the Earth has gone silent? For many among those left behind, the first-generation colonists, the European coalition was a godsend, and many colonies quickly sought membership within the newly forming government, not only as a way to stake power, but a way to bring order to a panicking society, and one that was becoming increasingly chaotic. Due to the extremes of the situation, any dissenters were threatened with being cut off from the trade networks, and fortunately there were very few among them, and before too long the European coalition was begrudgingly accepted as the primary power on Europa. At first, things were hard. Extra resources and support from Earth was completely cut off, and no one in the coalition could get messages to Earth, let alone even if anyone knew if it was still there. With Earth interests gone, both the surface stations and tunnels quickly fell into disrepair, with priority switching from contacting Earth to prioritizing the survival of humanity on Europa. New stations needed to be built, not only for proper habitations for humans, but farming infrastructure, medical care, and many more important issues. Food quickly became a pressing concern. Dry goods from Earth were running low, and due to contamination concerns, food from local creatures wasn't considered before this point. But regardless, if produce and meat from Europa could possibly kill humans, this idea could no longer be a roadblock for what was becoming a bid for survival. In terms of human survival, almost no seeds from Earth were left, and the only plant that did take hold from Earth was a modified tobacco strain. Luckily, 3 seeds were discovered that could grow on dry land, though only 2 were of use to humans. Salt vine provided a natural way to procure salt from the watery brine of Europa, though would sometimes explode when the fruit would come into contact with water. So it was useful, though with extreme caution in mind. The other, dubbed pomegranate, while explosive, became a staple on the typical European diet, and was later discovered to have minor healing properties. The last one, raptor's bane, was ultimately deemed inedible for humans due to its poisonous properties, though it is now grown as a typical deterrent and weapon to use against aggressive mud raptor infestations. Meat was another issue entirely, as it was determined, at least in the interim, that domesticating anything on Europa would be a long shot, and instead, the coalition looked into establishing fisheries and hunting what they could from the environment. When attempting to hunt larger prey like threshers and mud raptors, all anyone ended up with was smelly and gamey meat that no one was willing to eat, and more deaths than were worth it in an already limited population. Though, while the food situation improved, available habitation space was quickly beginning to be a problem. But while it was easy enough to colonize the cold caverns, many of the resources that were needed lay in an area known as the European Ridge. But unlike the sparsely populated caverns, the ridge was an overtly hostile environment and one that was well known to dispose of both submarines and their crews rather easily. Though, facing the current situation, what other choice was there? Using existing submarines, regardless of their intended purpose, would be repurposed, and existing submarine crews would be reorganized into what is known today as the military arm of the European coalition. And thankfully, this creation of a military force allowed humans to push into the European Ridge and create permanent settlements there, not only allowing access to more space and access to resources. This push also created new jobs to pursue and established a hope that humanity really could survive here for the long term. Soon after this, new colonies and submarines were built, and not long after, the first native Europeans were born. Humanity now had a growing population and a new reason to strive and exist. Though, for however positive this was for humanity, it was short-lived. As the decades passed on, deteriorating mental conditions became rampant. At first, the coalition was willing to try anything. They approved a type of first-class entertainers to be a standard on submarine crews. though this worked to annoy crews more than actually help, leading to the Coalition reversing their decision, though it was already too late. This class of entertainer would become the basis for what we understand today as the Children of the Hawk Mother. As the Coalition was trying to solve this in their own way, two new movements began to arise. The Church of the Husk, which, despite the intentions of the founders, quickly became an excuse to rally against authority and distribute drugs throughout the colonies. The other was the Jovian Separatists, a group of self-proclaimed freedom fighters wanting to free the colonies from the tyrannical rules of the Coalition. The Coalition sits at the precipice of a newly chaotic era. Terrorist actions are on the rise. The Church of the Husk spreads discord and unrest through the colonies, and the Children of the Hawk Mother are busy trying to rekindle favor. The Coalition is tightening their grip and ruling with an iron fist. But they need your help. Report to your local recruiting office today and fight for the future of Europan society. Fight for your society and your future. Paid for by the Coalition Advertising for a Better Tomorrow.